Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope I'm plugged in. Yeah, am I plugged in? There we go. Welcome to tonight's podcast. Tonight we're doing something a little bit different. We're taking you to some place we have not been before. So we've had the pleasure of making an interview this weekend, and we want to talk about a topic that normally a lot of guys don't talk about. And we wanted to bring it to you because we like to break barriers. This weekend, we had the pleasure of speaking to Vernon Miller. Vernon Miller actually has a book out. Let me take this down. This is his book, Vernon Miller, Money, 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 The Root of All Evil. So you'll actually be able to find the link to his book inside of our description. So in the book, Vernon talks about his life, just in a small segment, but a very transitional segment. In that book, he refers to his first day in prison. And from his first day in prison, he talks about the 9 months that led him there. So Vernon grew up in a nice neighborhood, nice family, took a tragic turn. From that tragic turn, bank robberies, he got sentenced to 39 years in prison. What we're going to talk about today is his first month in prison and the things that happened to him. Also, we have on the show HB Global. He's going to talk about, if I told you a story that there was an 18-year-old guy and he assaulted my 12-year-old daughter, you would think, wow, that's tragic. You would want me to do something to that gentleman. But what if it's reversed? What if the victim is the guy? And the guy is 11, 12 years old. And the female is 18 or 19. Do we still have the same sympathy? We should. These are topics that we should be able to talk about openly, honestly, and in a safe space. That's what we're going to present to you. Ronan, how do you feel, brother?
Man, this, like I said, this is definitely touching some hot points and some suppressed feelings that people are probably trying not to admit to. So while you listen to these two gentlemen's stories, hopefully, if you feel like there's somebody you need to talk to, hopefully you will seek some help and guidance to deal with the traumas that you've experienced in your past. And sometimes you suppress a lot of feelings until they all come rushing back at you at different times. So I know right now it might be something uncomfortable, but hopefully this plants a seed of allowing you guys to relax enough to want to speak on it, but get professional help while you're trying to deal with the trauma.
Also, I want you to remember, I think one of the issues that we have when we talk about this, especially when it comes to Vernon case, is how did you let that happen? Why would you let that happen? I just want you to always remember this. If the genders were reversed, would you be asking that same question? Keep that in mind every time you have a question that's posed. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and get our intro, and then we'll bring up Vernon. We'll do an introduction, and he's going to spend time with a therapist today. Stay tuned. This is a show that not only you don't want to miss, you want to play it on replay a few times.
Absolutely.
All right, folks, buckle up and get ready because tonight is the night. It's about to get real. It's about to get raw, and it's about to get therapeutic. You know what time it is? It's the evening therapy session brought to you by the Fearless Podcast and co-hosted by the one and only Ronan Travelers. You already know when these two legends get together, it's nothing short of electrifying. Expect excitement, information, fun, and yes, blunt, unfiltered truths. But wait, hold up. We're bringing in a heavy hitter tonight, folks. Joining us live from Atlanta, Georgia, we have a true Southern belle who's got the brains and the credentials to shake things up. She's got a master's degree in therapy, and she's an expert when it comes to relationships and mental health. So if the dating scene has you confused, upside down, and sideways, you're in the right place tonight. We're diving deep into the psychology of love, dating, and everything in between. This is your chance to hear it all from a female therapist's point of view, what's really going on inside everyone's head. But don't get too comfortable yet, because she's about to introduce herself in a one-on-one interview with with Fearless and Ronan. And trust me, you don't want to miss the special guest joining later on. So grab your popcorn, grab your drink, and get ready to take notes. Tune in live, and let's get into this conversation that'll make you think, laugh, and maybe even change the way you look at relationships forever. That's tonight, only on the Fearless podcast, co-hosted by Ronan Travelers. Get ready, because this is one therapy session you won't forget.
I want to bring up, we have two therapists here, and I want to bring them up just so you guys can give an intro about some of the subjects you may talk about, because I know that you have these subjects that you talk about with some of your clients, and I just want to give an intro for that.
Well, I'm back again, Georgia. Thank you for having me back. I work here in the Atlanta area. I do telehealth, so I see clients all over the state of Georgia. And I see clients anywhere from anything from anxiety to depression, different levels of depression, bipolar depression, PTSD, relationship issues. So I cover the gamut in counseling.
Okay. Stephanie.
I'm Stephanie, and I am also in Atlanta, Georgia, and I just do telehealth. I as well do see clients, anxiety, depression, a lot of trauma, parental issues, seeing some couples. So yeah, I have a wide range of experience.
Fantastic. So how we're going to format this show is we're always up front, always on top, but today we take a step back. We're going to take a step back and let the therapist do what the therapists do. The first person we're going to bring up is Vernon Miller. Vernon, how you doing today, sir?
Doing just fine, and you?
I'm doing great. So first of all, I want to hype your book up because you wrote a book, and I want to make sure that that gets some technical things. So before we get into your story, give me a little synopsis about the book that you wrote.
Well, it's a story where a guy, he ends up in prison based off of some crimes that he committed. And so the book starts with the first morning that he wakes up, and then he just lays back on his bed, and then he reflects back starting back over the last 9 months that everything that he did, from the drugs, the women, the robberies, and all the fights that he got into and whatnot.
So I know that in a sense, this is your story, but some of the names have been changed to protect the innocent, as they say.
Very
so it
correct.
is your story basically from your first day in prison and the 9 months that led up to you going there. Am I correct?
Correct.
All right. We're going to have an interview with you, since we already talked to you for about 4 hours this weekend, and we're going to talk about that. But tonight we're focused on something a little bit more serious.
Okay.
And so we're going to talk about your first month that you were locked up. And maybe when we step back, just so I can get some background, I want you to give the therapist a background of a summary of that story, what got you there, what led you there, and then the things that happened. All right.
Well,
You don't have to start now, brother. We are going to the back. We stepping back. You get to have your therapy session, and we'll be back if you need us. Until then, Vernon, we appreciate it, my brother.
All right.
Hello, Vernon.
How you doing?
I'm good. It's so great to have you do this. Stephanie and I work with a lot of different levels of trauma. And I think with what you're doing and the fact that you are opening up about your experience, it is so important for boys and men to hear your story. And so we can take the shame off of what happens to men. And I love what Fearless said. You know, I want people, as they're listening to this, to change the genders and ask yourself, would I be posing the same question to a female? Because it is so important for people to understand that this type of abuse happens to men every single day.
Correct.
All right. What is your story, sir?
Well, I like I grew up in a nice home. You know, I was sheltered. I'm a mama's boy. My mom, I never wanted for anything, and she tried to keep me from the streets. But at some point, like some children do or some men do, I ended up gravitating to the streets, and I ended up falling in with some guys that I latched on to because when I was growing up, although my dad was in the house, he wasn't necessarily in the house. He was just more of a breadwinner and authoritarian figure. He never really spent any father-son time with me, so that made me long for that male bonding. And so at the point when I met the guys that I ended up getting in trouble with, that's what I was looking for from them, that acceptance of not only just not being considered a nerd or a square or a geek, but I was also looking for some brothers or some uncles, you know, not necessarily a father figure, but just brothers and uncles. Because like in the interview I did with Ronan and Fearless the other day, we talked about how I went to the military and I had that brotherhood there, and so you know I've always looked for male bonding because I've always got it from females because that's how I grew up, but I've never really at that point I had never discovered what I was looking for men. So when I met the guys, I was just looking for that, and that allowed me to fall in and just start committing crimes or whatever because I was looking for that acceptance. Um, then once I went to prison, the first prison I was at, I ended up getting raped um, because again, my trust in the guy allowed me to kind of let my defenses down, and so I kind of trusted him faster than I should have, not really knowing the environment that I was in, and so I got raped.
Well, can you walk us through, because I think it's very important for people to understand that grooming, although it may look different as far as age groups, but it's the same pattern. And so can you kind of walk us through what that, you know, the initial interaction with him and then the process of grooming? Because now that you look back on it, you're like, oh, okay, this is what was going on. So can you talk to us? You know, we weren't there, so can you tell us your experience with being groomed?
Well, like I said, when I first got to the prison, um, someone, you know, of course they was like, because prison is kind of set up based off of state, and when I was in the federal system, so in the federal system, each prison is kind of set up based off of cities and states. So when I got to the unit that I was in, someone asked me where I was from, so I told them. So they introduced me to him because he was from my area, and so I just starting just off of a conversation, because even at that point you could tell that I was new to prison in general. So it was easy for him to groom me, as you say, and like a lot of things that I I can't really be specific now because it's been over 30 years. But one comment that he made that just always sticks out, and even I talked about it on the interview with Ronan and Fearless the other day, was he had said, if you because we used to talk about females a lot, and he had said, if you lick a hole, you suck a pole. And so me not knowing that was his way of trying to figure certain things out. But I was just like, dude, you know, man, I'm not, you know, I don't go that way. I'm not gay, you know. So, but he just, you know, kept on with the innuendos, but I never really caught it. And so, we would sit around sometime and drink because they had a hooch. And so one particular evening day I was in his cell, and we had started drinking, and then I got up to use the bathroom because again, even though I'm in his cell, and I know after the fact that I shouldn't have been doing that, but in that situation, because I trusted him, I just figured, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and use the bathroom because I'd already been using the bathroom in his cell. Go ahead.
No, I mean, it makes sense. You kind of, like you said, you trusted him. He's establishing like this relationship with you and kind of breaking down your walls a little bit because, I mean, what you needed kind of that to find a community quickly, not knowing anybody obviously in prison, and so it was very easy for him to just like little bits at a time break down those walls.
Yeah.
So on the event, you don't have to recall what the actual event, but you said you had been drinking. You didn't think twice about getting up and relieving yourself, and you did it. So we're assuming that that's when the assault.
Oh yeah, while I was using the bathroom, and as he just came up from behind me, put me like in a chokehold, and then drug me over to the bed. And since I was already kind of using the bathroom, my pants had already been undone, so it wasn't like he had to wrestle with that. And then he just did his thing.
So then after that, what is he doing after he's assaulted you? What are you doing? What's going through your mind?
Talking about doing it or after?
After. Well, if you want to talk about during, I think that's important, but I don't want you to have to go into detail, but just what's going on, what's going through your mind during the assault?
Just hoping that it was hurry up and be over with. Just wanted it to be over.
And then afterwards, what's
after I went back to I went to my cell, and then eventually I got moved to the unit that I was supposed to be in. And so from then he kept trying. He would always come, have people try to come get me because he couldn't come in the unit that I was in. Mm-hmm. So he would just send someone to come get me, but I would always avoid him or stop going and see what he wanted.
Okay, so I want to go back a little bit. So you said that you were in his cell and you two were hanging out. You two had been drinking. You've relieved yourself. He's then assaulted you, and then you go back to your cell. So when you go back to your cell, are you then by yourself?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I want to talk about those hours after the assault because I think that is so important for men and boys to understand what is going through your head, and it's perfectly normal what's going through your head considering what just happened to you. So what are the thoughts that are going through your head?
At that point, I was just like, man, I can't believe that happened. I can't believe he did that. I was hoping that although that was the only time it happened. At that time, I was just saying, I hope that was it. I hope he don't try to do it again. And I didn't know who to talk to about it or nothing. I just stayed quiet about it.
Okay. So that you didn't receive any medical attention. You didn't tell anybody.
No.
So how soon after that event were you transferred to another area?
I think maybe a couple of days, because the way that prison was set up was at that time when you first get to the prison is what you got to go through what they call admissions and orientation, where everybody that's new to the prison goes to that unit. And so that's how I ended up meeting him. And once I finished my A&O, my admissions orientation, that usually only lasts a couple of days. And then after that, you get moved to your regular housing unit. And so after that, I ended up getting moved to my housing unit.
Oh, so it was strictly.
I'm sorry.
Well, no, go ahead, Stephanie.
So you had only known him a couple days?
Months.
Yes.
But was it a couple of days or a month?
I was at the prison a couple of days before I met him.
Okay.
I was there a couple of weeks. I'm like a month or so by the time it happened.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. Sorry.
So it was strictly coincidence that you were sent to another unit soon after this happened.
Well, it was going to happen anyway.
Okay.
Unless that would have been the unit that I was housed in, because not everybody is housed. They separate. Like like say 10 people may get off the bus, 2 people may go to one unit, one person to go to this unit, you know, so they kind of send you to your regular housing unit.
Okay. Okay.
So
So
I guess you're right. Yeah, it just may have been by happenstance that I was finishing up my A&O just as that happened. And maybe that was part of his plan because he knew that I was going to be moved soon anyway.
So then you're transferred and you've got this thing that has happened to you. You're not talking to anybody. So once you're transferred, are you continuing to interact with other inmates, or how are you?
Now, once I ended up getting to my unit that I was in, I was around guys. See, I'm from Shreveport. And so I met some guys that was about my age. I was from New Orleans.
Okay.
And so those eventually at some point I kind of opened up and told them what happened, because when the guy kept coming to the unit asking for me and I was avoiding them, they started to kind of pry and was like, well, why you keep avoiding him? He's a homie. He's from our way. Why you keep trying to avoid him? And so eventually I kind of had to tell them what happened.
How did they respond?
Well, they talked to him about it, and so he said, so from that point it became what they call he said. So he said I wanted it, and of course I said it didn't. So we eventually all had a big meeting in the gym area. But prior to going there, they had told me, they gave me a knife and said, here, you got to take this knife and use it. Now, all you got to do is make an attempt. We'll be there to, protect you if something was to happen. But if you're saying that this didn't happen, then you got to at least show everybody that it didn't happen. And the only way to do that is you have to do something to him. And so when we got to the area, I mean, I never even took the knife because I just couldn't do it. But once I got there, basically we just talked, and I kept telling in front of everybody, I say, no, you raped me. But I just still couldn't stab him.
Okay, so I want you to educate us. So in the prison culture, is it now acceptable for these type of situations to happen? For men to rape other inmates? Is this the culture?
Well, it's not the culture if the person already has the reputation of messing with, in prison lingo, messing with punks.
Okay.
Or messing with homosexuals. So if you already have that reputation, then if I was to tell you, yeah, I had sex with him, then you're not going to think anything of it because I already had that reputation.
Okay. So in order to protect your reputation, you now have to attempt to harm him.
Yes.
To prove that you are not, quote unquote, a punk.
Yeah.
Wow. Was he known to do this to others?
Now, before all of this happened, no, I did not know that. But in the midst of all of this happening, then I started to find out that he more or less had a reputation for it, because he had already been locked up 15 years.
Okay.
So I can't remember correctly or not, but he may have even did state time. So but in the midst of all of the back and forth, I found out that he already had a reputation for it. So that's why everybody believed that I wanted it as opposed to me being raped.
Okay. So what does this do to you as a young man? Because now at this time, you're how old?
21.
You're 21 years old and you've been raped. And you are now having to defend yourself against anybody else who may have the same ideas in their head. And
after that happened, it kind of got I say under the rug. Nobody ever really said anything. Yeah, nobody ever said anything about it. Then I just kind of ended up getting transferred to another prison anyway.
Okay.
And so after that, once I got to the other prison, I was there for a little while before another guy transferred over, and then he told everybody about what happened at that prison. And then because of that, I ended up getting stabbed
Oh,
because I didn't do something to the other guy
Right.
at the prison that
right.
raped me. So now I'm getting stabbed at the other prison for not doing nothing to him.
Okay. So this is it's just literally continues to build and become this thing because now you didn't defend yourself or
Mhm.
protect your name or whatever. And so now you've got to deal with this until you're released.
Yep. Well, at some point, once I ended up getting other prisons. It just kind of became rumor.
Mm.
Nobody ever really was able to substantiate anything. So it was just always rumored that I was a homosexual or that I got raped. You know, because depending on who you hear the story from, it was always going to be different.
Right. Right. It's the telephone game. So this has happened to you at 21 years old. How did this affect your self-esteem? How did this affect your self-worth? Because you still have to finish serving your time. So what is this doing to you as a young man?
To be honest with you, I really just actually I just had put it in the back of my mind because prison at that point, I was already trying to just deal with my new environment to begin with.
Yeah.
And so because there was so much other things going on in the prison environment, like other fights and other stabbings and other killings, that I would just put mine in the back of my mind and just was just trying to deal with the reality that I was really in prison.
Mm.
I didn't really start talking about it to a therapist until after my 5th or 6th year in.
Okay. So you did receive therapy in prison.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I received therapy for probably 10 years of the 25 years I was in prison.
Wow.
Okay.
So when you started therapy, what was going on was this a part of being in prison? This was like the part of the program for you to have therapy, or was this something that you asked for?
I had in 1998 or 99 when I got moved to a prison in North Carolina. I was moved there for the sole purpose of a program for guys that wasn't adjusting well to the penitentiary environment. So they allowed me to drop down to a medium.
Okay.
And a part of that agreement was I had to attend this uh, um, psychology program.
Okay.
And
Mm.
so part of that program was to go to see a therapist.
Okay.
And so in the therapy, and honestly, I really first started therapy as a joke. I didn't really think that it was going to do anything for me.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, once I started to take it serious, I really found out that it really started to help me deal with a lot and find out a lot about myself.
Good. How long were you in therapy? I think this is important for people to understand. Therapy, it doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
So how long were you in therapy before you felt safe enough to start opening up?
I started going every week for about the first 6 weeks before I actually started. And what happened was when I in that particular session, the therapist she found out I had started lying to her about certain stuff. I
Mm.
started flipping stuff around and something dealing with me about manipulating. And so she just told me, hey, look, if you're not going to sit here and take this serious, if you're
Yeah.
going to, if I, you just can't do the work that you like you're supposed to, there's no need to even come back. And so I get in just her tone of what she was saying made me realize, man, I really need to take this serious. I need to stop. And the only way I'm really, get to the root of everything is to take this serious. And so probably about 6 weeks.
Okay. Now, you said you started to manipulate and start turning things around. So, were you starting to feel uncomfortable with having to, so were you starting to shut down, and that's why your behavior was starting to go the other way?
Mostly because I just didn't trust her.
Okay.
Because for me, I kind of, now I'm different. I'm older, so now it's different for me now. As say I'm talking to you now as a stranger, as opposed to talking to them at 21, 22. I think no, at that point I should have been about 25.
Okay.
25. So about 25, I'm still in prison. I'm not really, I'm still looking at them as the police.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to open up because it was just a lot. It's just a lot, and it really just boiled down to my trust.
Okay.
But once I was able to, I guess how you say, build that trust, then it just became easy.
Was it were there specific questions, or did you just start talking? Were there things that she was asking you, kind of getting it out of you, or did you start talking once you felt comfortable?
It was like the homework. She would ask, like maybe some questions that I had to answer on my homework, things that I had to do, assignments that she may have gave me, like a workbook or whatnot, and I just wasn't doing it. And then, but eventually, just got to the point to where I just started actually doing the homework, and in the process of doing the homework, it made me start to think.
So once you were released from prison, did you do any more therapy outside of?
Oh yes, since I've been home, I've not the first year. I think the second year I was home, I saw a therapist for about a year and a half.
Okay, good. Well,
I just went to the VA hospital today to start going back to therapy because I had some other issues happen last week. I don't know if maybe this is going too far, but I attempted suicide last week, and because of that, I have to start seeing a therapist again now.
Do you want to talk about what got you to that point?
Not at this point. I will, but not right now.
Okay.
I don't mind, just not right now.
Yeah, I get it. I
Oh,
get it.
yeah.
That's a lot to share, and thank you for that, because
Yeah.
I'm, it's hard when you get to that point in your life, and I'm glad that you are talking to somebody about it.
Because first of all, I have one of the things that I discovered, of course, going to therapy in prison. I have mental health issues. One of the major ones is borderline personality disorder.
Okay.
But I also suffer from suicidal ideation. So I think about suicide every day. But some days are just not as bad as others. But last week was just one of those days where it was just things that were just get piled on. And I tried to reach out to my support system. I couldn't get in touch with nobody. And it just got to a point where I just was over.
You said you tried to reach out to your support system and you weren't able to access anybody. Do you have a support line?
Well, I have friends that I talk to that know that I have issues. People that I feel that I trust, that even if I don't have to talk about my problem, what's going on, I can just talk to, just sit and talk to them, or, just talk.
Be around them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you said you weren't able to get in contact. So I guess I should have clarified the question. Would a hotline would have helped if you would have been able to reach out to a hotline and talk to somebody in that moment?
Maybe not. I don't really know, because I've never, in moments like that, I've never had to reach out to a complete stranger.
Okay.
In moments like that, I'm always able to talk to, someone that I know.
Okay. Well, I think it's important for people to know that, when you aren't able to reach out to your immediate support system, that those hotlines are manned or womaned by therapists. And just as you've opened up to us, and I know you've talked about this before, but it's somebody on the other end who truly does care. So I just encourage you, if you ever get to that spot again, just to pick up the phone and get it out, because sometimes you just need to say what's going on, and it makes it feel a little bit better.
It's 988, just so you know.
Yeah, that's the number, 988.
I got you.
Yeah. So I want to bring the other gentleman on because he's going to open up. And then I have, Stephanie and I want to talk to you two together, because a lot of the questions that I know I have are going to be relevant for both of you. So I would like to hear his story. And then hopefully you'll hang on with us and we can speak to the two of you together.
I'm going to fill in some blanks while you're on here, Vernon, just so they get a better understanding. Now I'll put you in the back and we'll bring up HB. So just so you know, when Vernon was only like 20, 21 years old when he went to prison. And they sent him to a maximum security prison, Leavenworth. So that type of prison is A-type, highly masculine type personalities in there. Meaning at any moment, anybody can get stabbed, get killed, anything goes down, and it's just constant tension. So when this happened to him, what the other guys are looking at is saying, hold up, you got to do something. Because there is no, we just let it go. You either got to kill him, you got to try to kill him. There's no like, oh, this didn't happen. Because when he says it didn't happen and he says things are okay, what happens is he actually got ostracized. Okay. Meaning we don't talk to you. We're not going to talk to you, because there are two groups of people. Like three groups of people in prison. Either you have what they call a child molester. No one wants to be with them. Someone who is a rapist, or someone who is gay. So if I am what I would say like the masculine man, I don't want to be associated with somebody who is gay. And I can't have that in what they call my car, the people that I associate. So
I was hanging around gang members. So that made it real bad.
Okay.
And also what he didn't tell you was they transferred him. And so, all right, before that, they do what they call a check-in, meaning not the prison, not the guards, not anyone like that. That crew comes to you and says, you cannot be on this yard. You cannot be in this prison. And what you have to do is go to a guard and say, I don't feel safe. I have to go check myself in. And he has actually checked himself into solitary confinement. And you stay there until they transfer you out to another prison. When they transferred him out to another prison, he arrived at, I think it was like Florence.
Yeah.
So his first day, he's in Florence. He's having I'm finally somewhere else. Nobody knows my reputation or what they preceded. But people in prison get transferred all the time. So somebody from that other prison comes to where he's at, and they say on the first, as soon as he gets there, they're like, we heard about you. You got to check in. So now he has to check in at the second prison, which puts him in solitary confinement. And one of the issues that we discussed when we were talking to him is he has this trust. He has people that have been around him, he's trusted in, and they never had his best interest in heart. They always had their best interest. So while he's in solitary, they say, come on out. No, everything's fine. We're good. His first day out, he gets into his cell, and somebody comes up to him and says, you can put exactly what they said to you, Vernon. What did the guy say to you exactly?
You can't be out here. I heard what happened to you. You can't be out here.
So he just gets out in solitary confinement. They say, you can't be out in this yard. You can't be in this cell. And so the guy says, wait here. I'll be right back. The guy returns with gloves and an ice pick and starts going at him. It just so happened that the guard walked by during this and seen it and said, hey, you got to come with me. Vernon didn't even know he was stabbed. Wow. So when he went to the place, he just got out of solitary confinement like an hour ago.
If that long.
If that long. So he gets stabbed up, and then they say, you can't be here. So he's getting tossed from one prison to another prison to another prison. And the reason he didn't go to a lower prison is because when you have so much time, they say, all right, you have over 25 years. We can't put you in a medium prison. You just have too much time.
Right.
So he had to get an exception to go to this other prison.
Wow.
And that's when he went there. And just to go a little bit further with you, because I know we talked about it, during the time that he was in North Carolina, he actually was good. When he left North Carolina, we asked him, and he said that's when he started thinking about suicide. And from our opinion, when you are in that high prison, you can't think about nothing else. It's just, I got to just live, survive, whatever's going on. You don't have time to really think. When he got to North Carolina, he had time to think. He left North Carolina, then all the thoughts and all the discussion he had, now he had to deal with it. And so that's why I think some of the issues had happened. And then throughout of it, we were talking about the trust.
Then I actually did, as far as what you saying about not being in North Carolina, I was in a really non-pressure situation. So then I get to then I go to another prison. Now I'm back into another pressure situation where I'm dealing with nothing but constant drama again within the prison. And again, say I don't function well in drama.
Right.
You know, not that kind of drama.
Not
Anyway,
that kind of drama, right?
Constantly trying to duck and dodge a knife. You know, that's not the kind of drama I'm used to.
And what we discussed with is he has a non-confrontational personality. And I think that is the issues that led to where he was at, because even when you guys read the book, you'll see, I mean, we talked about it. He did bank robberies and he didn't get that much money out of it. They kept the money. They would sit in the car and send him in. So he had this trust where he's trusting people. Like the guy said, hey man, you know, you robbed the bank. If you don't put no bullets in your gun, they can only get you for this. But that's not the truth. So you use a gun, that's a mandatory 25 years. So he's been trusting people, you know, to do that. So when people ask, how did this happen? Because when he went to the prison, somebody said, hey, those are your people from Shreveport. Oh, so he just talks to the guy and the guy is grooming him the entire time. And because he's naive, he was naive to the street. That's how he got taken advantage of. And he's really naive to this prison system. So he just goes in thinking, we all guys. Why would we talk about any of this? And the guy was just setting him up from the beginning and he never seen it come. Wow. So you figure that most of the people that are in the high security prison, that's not their first time. They've been in and out of prison, so they understand it. So you're dealing with someone who just was their first time in prison and they're just new to it. So that's give you the background. I'm going to put you in the back, Vernon, and I'm going to bring up HB Global and Disappear. And then once he tells his story, we'll bring you guys both up and we'll all talk. Is that all right?
I'm going to be off camera, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right. So if you got to use the bathroom and get a drink, now would be the time.
Cool.
HB, how you doing today, sir? I'm going to disappear. I'm going to let you tell your story and we'll come back.
How are you, sir? Oh.
I'm sorry about that. Yes, sir.
You're fine.
Yeah, how are y'all doing tonight?
Good. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I mean, I had two incidents when I was younger. You know, I really never talked about it because I didn't think it, you know, it didn't affect me because you know how you growing up, you know, in the 80s and 90s is like you know, coming to age, you know what I'm saying, boys doing what boys do. And you know, you watch movies and stuff like that, and you kind of think like, okay, there's nothing wrong with what's happening. So I think this was like I want to say this was like 90, 94. I think I was like 10, 11. I went to go visit my my dad's side of the family in New Jersey. And you know, one of the stops was, you know, I went to visit my sister. And during that time, it was like I think it was getting dark. You know, I was outside playing with the neighborhood kids or whatnot. And there was like a older girl. I can't remember if she was a friend of my sister, but she knew my sister. But she was older, and then she was like, "Oh, you know, your little brother, he's kind of cute." And she's like, "Come sit on my lap." And when, you know, I went to go sit on her lap, and she's like, "Oh, he's so cute." And she was like, let me see what you got down there. And you know, she put her hand, you know, touched my, my private area. And at the time I didn't think nothing of it.
Well,
I
so
thought,
hold on, and we're gonna stop you a lot.
okay.
So you're 10 years old, and
Yes.
about 10, and this lady is how old?
I don't know. It was so long ago. I don't even know if she was like just old. I know she was way older and bigger. I don't know if she was like an older teenager or she was, over the age of 18, 20. I can't remember exactly.
Can I
Matter of
also
fact,
ask,
I don't remember what she looks like.
were there other people in the room as well?
No, we was outside.
Oh, you were outside.
Yeah, we was outside in the street, and there was like other kids around.
Okay.
So, and I want to say it was like older kids. It was like teenagers, and
So they were they close enough to see what was going on?
I can't even remember, to be honest with you. I just remember the incident. I don't even remember like who I was playing with.
Mm-hmm.
I just, be honest with you, I can only remember that it was dark outside, and there was like a row of houses. I can't even tell you the description of the houses. That's how, what I'm saying, long ago it was.
Yeah.
So when you go to sit on her lap, are you thinking anything? Do you remember like, okay, what's going on here? Are you attracted to this girl? Or what is like? Are you thinking it's innocent? And
I thought I remember her being attractive because if she wasn't, I wouldn't have went to her. So, at the time, I'm thinking like, what I'm saying, oh, this older girl is showing me attention. She hit me with the flatteries and all that stuff. So, I just went along with it.
And so she touches you, and what are you thinking?
I didn't think nothing of it. I can't remember. I want to say I liked it.
Right. I mean, you're a kid, you're a boy, you're 10 years old.
Yeah.
So then you never see this girl again?
No, I never seen her again.
And you never told anybody?
Never told anybody.
Okay. So I know you said there were 2 incidences. So this happens to you, and what does it do to you as a young boy? Are you now, full speed ahead into you're 10, you're going into puberty, your hormones are at 9 million.
Mm-hmm.
And so what does this do to you as a young boy?
I want to say it make me, I don't know if that moment contributed to it, but I was like very like active, sexually active at an early age. Cause I think I want to say I lost my virginity at 13, something like that. Yeah, I think I was like 12, 13. So it made, what I'm saying, that I don't know if I contribute to that situation, but I knew I was want to have sex at an early age.
Do you know why you chose to maybe not say anything?
Not to I don't know why I didn't say anything to adults, but I think I want to say I told like my friends and stuff like that, but I didn't say anything to any adults about it.
So you didn't tell any adults, but you told your friends. So are you telling your friends because you are thinking what?
Like, oh, something cool happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I was just like telling people like, oh yeah, this is what happened. And they was like, oh, for real, blah blah. So
then you at no point. Well, I'm gonna wait for you to go to your second incident. So you're 10 years old when this happens. You're now 13 years old. You were sexually active. The wind blows. Whatever. You are wanting it. So you're very sexual at this age.
Yes.
And then your next incident happens when?
I think it was maybe, I want to say I was 13, 14. I can't remember exactly how old I was. I think I was home alone at my sister's house, and I was hanging out on the front porch, and a lot of people walk by where my sister lived on the street. A lot of people walk up and down that street, and one of the girls that lived down a few houses, she was walking by, and she was like, what you doing? I was like, no, I'm just chilling. Like, where your sister at? I'm like, I don't know. She gone. I think my sister's probably at work or something like that, because that's what she typically was. She's like, you home alone? I was like, yeah. She like, you want to have sex? And I was like, yeah. So we went. Yeah, I think I went and looked in my sister's drawer. My sister had some condoms in the drawer, so went and grabbed some condoms and went back in the back bedroom and we had sex.
Was that your first time, or you were active before that?
Yeah, I was active before that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, because my sister lived in another location before she moved there, and that's when the first time. Because I think I lost my virginity to like I don't know the word to say, but I guess a train. So it was like 2 other guys and 1 girl.
At 13?
I think I was 13. Yeah.
So how old were you when you realized that what happened to you at 10 years old was abuse?
I want to say in my teenage years. I think I want to say it was abuse, but I knew it was wrong. So like in my teenage years, like you know, you in high school, you notice like some of the older guys are like, they come into the school to pick up some of the younger girls that's still in high school and stuff like that. So that type of stuff was happening. So you was realized like, man, I mean, these old dudes are, you know what I'm saying, basically taking our girls, So, you kind of think about it and like, yeah, I'm like you think about it like, damn, you know what I'm saying? This, you know what I'm saying? Like this older woman, you know what I'm saying? She like sexually assaulted me. But you know what I'm saying? But I didn't like harbor no ill feelings about it because, when you're growing up in that type of environment, you think it's normal. So
Wait, can you clarify when you said when you grow up in that type of environment?
With older, I want to say like, older kids, you know what I'm saying, like dealing with younger kids.
Dealing with younger kids in what way?
Like sexually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this was something that happened that you were aware of to other children.
Yeah, so it was crazy. It was issues where we had police officers like mess around with the teenage girls in school. So all this type of stuff was going on. You had male students that was teenagers like sleeping with teachers and stuff. It was crazy. I mean, you think about it now, it's crazy, but at the time you think like, oh yeah, you know what I'm saying? Everybody, it's like your hormones, you horny, and your hormones is going, you know what I'm saying? You're not thinking like none of this stuff is bad.
So it was really normalized.
Pretty much.
So you've got trusted adults, quote unquote, police officers who are having sex with the girls that you go to school with.
Yes.
You've got older kids having sex with the younger girls in the neighborhood.
Yes.
You've now got an adult woman who has now molested you.
Yes.
And this was normalized. This was a thing.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I don't talk to people from, all over the country. It seemed like this was happening everywhere. So, I mean, I don't know how y'all grew up, but I mean, this stuff wasn't like, nothing that was a secret. Because I talk to people from New York, I talk to people from Atlanta, I talk to people from the West Coast. It seemed like all this type of stuff was going on. We see how the whole R. Kelly thing that went down, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I didn't, I didn't think nothing of it. But as I got older, sometimes when you get around certain people, you start to gain principles and stuff like that. And it's like, you wouldn't do stuff like that. But at the time, I didn't see anything wrong with what was happening and stuff. So
did it make you, or do you feel this shaped how you looked at girls?
I don't know. I think other reasons. Okay, in what sense? Because that's a good question. As far as like how.
Well, and you tell me, because I don't want to put words in your mouth. So if this changed how you viewed women, how did it? Because I don't want to put something in your head.
You know what? I never gave it any thought to that when that happened. How did I view women differently? Because I don't think I ever had a different thought of women.
Okay.
Being a certain way.
So you're having sex, a lot of sex, at 13 years old. And so,
Well, no, not a lot of sex.
okay,
It was an incident that happened. I think, like, I mean, it was like throughout high school, I was meeting girls, you know, other girls hooking up with other girls and stuff like that. But it wasn't like a lot. But
okay.
I want to say maybe before I turned 18, I probably had sex probably like maybe like 10 different girls by the time I turned 18.
Is that not a lot of sex?
I mean, I
I
guess.
mean,
I'm
I mean,
not.
I mean, for some people, you know, I don't know. You know, this is the way I'm thinking about it. You know,
Okay.
for some people, because everybody was around the way was having sex, so I didn't realize until it was an issue that we have this whole movement right now, and you starting to learn that young people are not having sex like that. At least, I mean, but I'm like, I mean, when I grew up, everybody was having sex. So
okay. So I guess I'll ask a clear question. You're having sex with these girls. Are there any feelings about these girls? Are they just objects to serve your needs at this
they
point?
were just objects.
Okay.
Me, I was, being manipulative, trying to have sex. Even, I mean, I used to work at a grocery store, and I used to pick up older women, like women who had kids, flirting with women, and older women flirting with me. So even I was like, some girls that I knew that was in high school that eventually graduated high school. They, at the time, I guess they was dealing with other guys, but they came available. Then I started dealing with them, type of thing.
So then, when did you start looking at girls differently?
In what manner?
I respect
Because
girls.
respect.
Mhm.
I want to say, I don't know, to older. I want to say maybe my 30s.
Mm.
My 30s started to change because I mean, you still young and you traveling the world. Because I was in the military, so I was in the Marines. So I'm partying. Every
Okay.
city I go to, we going out to the club. We meeting girls. Girls they want to hook up. Like, oh, you in the military? You know what I'm saying? Blah 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 and all that stuff like that. So it was just going down. It didn't until I got maybe in my 30s. I wanted to be in a more serious relationship. That's when I started to, like, what I'm saying, change my mindset. Because I'm like, I can't be still doing the same thing if what I'm saying. So, but at the same time, I mean, I'm still having fun. I'm single. I'm not I'm not forcing nobody to do anything they don't want to do. So, but as far as, like, when there's times where I'm thinking about I want to be married, then maybe I take these women more seriously. But right now I'm not. So
Stephanie, any questions? Okay.
I don't. I sorry. I'm in my head. I
got a
have
couple
a lot of questions, but it would be digging and going into therapy. I appreciate you sharing.
so would you say I need therapy?
No, I'm not saying anything. I am saying this is
I'll
my
say it.
question.
So okay, you know how things were. Look, I'm in the 90s we watching TV, like my mom, she worked late nights, so she wasn't home to watch me. So I was running the streets. Anything on TV I saw. And
Yeah.
and the whole imagery was like, what I'm saying, being a player.
Yep.
So that's how I move through life, just trying to be a player, trying to be cool.
So my thought, I'll try to be concise, but I immediately thought, I wonder if, and you just said kind of, you like the TV raised you a little bit, like um babysat you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Your mom did what she needed to do. in order to support, and that's great. There's also things that happened that maybe set trajectory a little bit, right? And so I don't know if the experience at 10 led to, you know, your pathway sexually. My thought is it could have accelerated it. But that's just like an assumption. And because at 10, me at 10 was not that, and like, and me at 13 was not that, but we've lived different lives. So I'm wondering if it did change the path a little bit. Um but I also like, it sucks that that was kind of the norm.
Yeah, because you getting peer pressure from older
Yeah.
kids in the neighborhood, and then you got adults that's around that's giving you peer pressure, like, oh yeah, you ain't got no girls, you ain't getting none, that type of stuff like that. So all this stuff is is coming at you different type of ways. Even
Yeah.
when I was young, what was that TV show, that movie, what is it called, Kids, whatever, something like that, when the one kid that was passing around HIV, and then all the kids was having sex. I think that's the movie. I think the movie was called Kids, something like that.
I don't know.
It's one of those popular movies that back in the 90s.
Okay.
Oh, was it Positive? I know what you're talking about. It was Kid Positive or something positive.
I can't remember. I want to say it was called Kids.
Okay.
But you seeing stuff like this, see these young kids having sex, even just learning about HIV and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That was scary, because even though I was having sex, I was having protected sex. So
Okay.
so I wasn't being irresponsible, because I was watching TV at the time, and I knew what was happening. So
Oh yeah, the chat said Kids.
Okay.
It's called Kids. Yeah, and I mean, someone in the chat said something about how, having sex that young stole some innocence, right? And really took something from what you're supposed to be enjoying at 10, 13, 15.
yeah, because even I can't remember how old I was, but we was young. I remember we there was this old house. I'm telling you, this can write it stuff. This is like a movie, like a coming of age movie. Like there was an old house that was abandoned, and in one of the rooms was full of pornographic magazines.
Wow.
So we was seeing this stuff, like, me and my friends, we were seeing this stuff, like, this was probably before I was 10.
Wow.
So it was a house, just old pornographic magazines, there's a pile of them. So we looking and we seeing this stuff, like, what, you know what I'm saying? So
HB, can I ask a question? What of course I can ask a question. That's why you're here. What conversations took place at home, from your mother about sex?
Yep.
No conversations. My mom, the only thing I think when I got a teenager, my only thing my mom said was like, you better not bring no babies homes, or I think that's pretty much it. The only thing she ever had to talk with me about wearing condoms. I mean, she probably mentioned it, but it wasn't like that.
So you learned about.
Yeah, because I remember I got caught with a girl in my room. I stuck a girl in my room. This was like, how old was I? I know I was a teenager. I can't remember exactly when it was, but my mom was asleep, and a girl came over to visit me and stuff, and we went into my room and stuff and closed the door. And I guess my mom, she immediately woke up, and she was like banging on the door. I'm trying to hide her in the closet, whatever.
Oh gosh.
She was like, I don't want to I don't know why you got my door closed. There are no locked doors in my house, blah, 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 and all that type of stuff. So, but yeah, I ended up getting in trouble from that. So she used to always be on to me about, like, you better not have no girls in my house while I'm gone. But she had to work at night, so
yeah.
So
then a lot of times she used to make me go stay with my sister. but that didn't help because my sister lived in I would say like the projects or whatever. So you got all those kids, they kids' mom on crack. So like the girl that I lost my virginity to, her mom was on crack, so her mom was never home.
Okay.
So
there's a culture, unfortunately, and I think it's still going on, especially in Black families. And I say that because I have worked with individuals from all backgrounds, and it seems in the Black community there is a sense of shame when it comes to having conversations about sex or sex in general. Don't bring anybody in my house. You better not have any babies, this, that, and the other. There is this undertone, well, I shouldn't even say undertone, overtone of sex is bad. Don't do it in my house. Don't get caught. And there aren't many conversations saying, hey, you know, when you're ready to have sex, this is what it should feel like. This is who you should be with. These are the feelings that should go along with it. So the parents, my parents included, did not have talks about sex. And I think that that's one of the huge reasons why so many things go undiscovered, because sex is such a shameful thing. And we're not talking about how to have intimate, healthy relationships.
Correct.
And so it's unfortunate that even still, sex isn't talked about. And why not? Because it's everywhere. So why aren't we having healthy conversations with our children about sex?
Well, I was raised by my grandparents, and I didn't learn sex from them, but I remember my grandpa put on a video and said, here's this. And that's how I learned. But I mean, like, I learned from friends. I learned from the experiences, right? And, you know, like at a young age, you saw those magazines, you heard it, you guys were talking about it, you saw it, you experienced it. That's how you learned about it, not what it actually, like the healthy ways, like Leslie said, or sorry.
So I see the question on here: at what age should parents discuss sex? And Drew, I think that's an awesome question.
Yeah.
So, you know, with Stephanie and I working in this field, unfortunately, these kids are being exposed to sex early. And with my ignorance when it comes to, what is that, Japanese anime?
yes.
I had no clue how much sex goes on in these anime, and these little kids are watching it. And so these kids are being exposed to all sorts of violent sex and everything else through anime and these other animated, these cartoons, and not even realizing what these kids are watching. There's one thing in particular that was a huge ordeal a few years ago, and one of my middle school students sat me down and she's like, do you know what this is about? And I said, no. And I started watching it, and I was floored at how much sex was going on in these children oriented shows on YouTube.
Yes.
So,
It's on YouTube too.
Everywhere.
My daughter's 6. I caught her. It was like a cartoon, and there was like some sexual stuff going on. I was like, hey, like, what is going on? And I couldn't believe it. And it's just like a kid's show.
Yeah.
And I'm like, because I could just imagine, because I was exposed at an early age. I mean, this is like in the 90s. I was exposed to it at an early age. Even HBO, not being mindful of what your kids are watching.
Yeah.
Because my mom was definitely not mindful. Anything was on TV, I had access to it. So, and she wasn't giving me no time period when I couldn't watch TV. None of that stuff like that. So, and then with her working at nighttime, it was just automatic. I'm watching, what is it, HBO, Sex Out the Dark, all that type of stuff, and Cinemax and all that crazy stuff. Watching Pimps Up, Hoes Down on HBO. So I'm seeing all this stuff.
So to kind of touch on the question about what age, I think that there's like stages and like introductory stuff per age, and I don't know like the correct age to start, but I would say that you don't just like say all of it to an 8-year-old, but I would say starting off, because I think that this goes back to starting off naming body parts what they are and all of that stuff. Like there's so much appropriate language that people are nicknaming things, and like, no, we got to name it what it is so that we're not shamed about it, but also that we have like respect and control over our own bodies, and knowing that what's right, what's wrong, all of that stuff. And then that gets into you know, going into the okay, people have like, we have these parts for a reason, and then kind of like easing into the sex talk. And it depends on your kid, it depends on what they're talking about, because you want, as a parent, them to get information from you, and to you having that open conversation with them and having them trust and respect you, right? And so, sorry, this is longer than I wanted it to be, but it's just like anything else, kind of like feeling out your child and knowing them and just being open and honest with them, like, hey, come to me if you have a question, like all
And
of
I
that
think
kind of
one
stuff.
of the other things I think it's important, sit down and have a conversation with your kids, especially, once school starts back up. Kids have been exposed to Lord knows what over the summer.
Yeah.
And so, have your kids create a space, sit in the family room floor and turn the TVs off and say,
Yeah.
hey, let's leave our cell phones on the table
Yeah.
and let's talk, for your kindergartner, what are and it is kindergarten, because let me just quickly do this. When I was actually working in the schools doing therapy, we had second graders that were getting caught having sex in the coat closets in the back of the classroom. So trust and believe, if you think that your child is not hearing about sex in the second grade, it's happening.
You know what? Look, I was already what they say back in the day, mannish.
Yep, man.
I was kindergarten. I was looking up the teacher's dress when I was in the kindergarten, because I remember I had a teacher, and they used to have like the nap time and stuff like that. And I used to take my, we sometimes we build forts with our mats, and we used to like our teachers wear these dresses, and we used to try to sneak up under the, look up on her dress. So like,
yeah.
I mean, you think about it, in retrospect, you're like, I couldn't believe I was doing all this stuff. But, that's some of the concerns that I have for my daughter, too. Because I'm like,
I think that's when it hits you. You're like, oh.
Because, I'm trying to protect her. And, you really can't control, her, her every waking moment throughout the day. Because even if you do try to keep her safe, you got to worry about the other kids.
Yes. And what they're being exposed to.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's a few things that I hope that we can all touch on when Vernon comes back, because I think there's questions that really pertain to both of your experiences and in trauma, let's call it what it is. But I want to go back to, I just think it's important to open the door for these conversations at home, because your kids, if they leave the house, I promise you they're being exposed to sex. I don't care if they're going to a faith-based school. I don't care if you're homeschooling them. They are on the computer. They are accessing sex every waking moment. They have access to it. So talk about it. Normalize talking about sex and removing the shame and guilt about sex. So once your children grow up and they're becoming adults, they can have healthy sex lives. And there's not this shame about what is going on, and there's conversations happening with their spouses and things of that nature. That's where all this stuff with sex and the disconnect with marriages happens. A lot of this happens with not having those healthy conversations in childhood.
Mhm.
grow up and you're adults and you don't know how to have healthy conversations about sex with your spouses. That part. We can't hear anybody.
You're muted,
Sorry
Fearless.
about that.
Yeah.
After watching, there's a few things I wrote down. I know this is not a medical term, but where people become hypersexual. It seems like if you're exposed to sex at a young age, and I've noticed this even when I was growing up, there would be girls that say in the 4th grade or 5th grade, they started puberty still. They started getting breasts and things, and there were older guys that would start hitting on them. And if those girls were exposed to sex, when they grew up, those are the girls we would say were loose, that they were that because that's how they valued it. Somebody at an older person, said we put value on you for your sex. And it was that they weren't mentally ready, but their bodies had developed into that. I've also seen it where someone, say, especially a female or even a male, when they were younger, they were abused. And to counter that, they've actually said, well, if it's a female that was abused by a male, she doesn't like males anymore. She becomes a lesbian. And the opposite with the guy that he says, well, I've been abused by someone. Like even we see where men have been abused by men, and all of a sudden they become abusers themselves. And I think we don't do it as men to look at that, because as men that are sexually abused, we're in a sense rewarded. Oh man, that happened to you. That's great. Everybody wanted that to happen. Even if it was unwanted, you can't say that it was unwanted because you were like the person that everybody hypes it up. And I think what I seen, I know this is off the topic, but I remember listening to Rick James, and he had said something about an apex of sex, meaning that it was like a drug, like he couldn't get it, he couldn't conquer the high. So every time he wanted to have sex, it had to be something so outrageous, so crazy, just to get mental stimulation. So regular sex was not enough. And I think I've seen that in today's world, where I've heard women talk about it when they say, just a missionary, it doesn't even get a guy off. Right. He has to masturbate in their face, slap her, do all these things.
Right.
Because,
the sexual Olympics.
Yes.
Right.
So, and I think that's what's happening in our society, that we've been so much exposed to sex that regular sex it's not even stimulating anymore. You need some type of hypersexual activity to get there. And I think that's what can happen to someone like HB when you're exposed that early.
Yeah.
So Vernon, I did want to ask you, now that we're all back together, how did this experience, this traumatic event that occurred, how did that shape how you looked at the world once you came out? Because you spent so much of your life behind bars, and now you've got to take this thing that happened to you and you're now out in the world. Like, how did that impact, or how do you feel it impacted your life once you were released?
Well, because it happened so early in my prison sentence, that after being in prison for 25 years, once I came out, I had already dealt with it because I had been in prison so long. I didn't tell anyone out here. I think I had mentioned it to my mom once or twice, but of course she didn't want to hear it because she didn't want to keep that in her mindset that could be still going on in prison after me still been in for so long. But I didn't start telling anybody about it until just recently, because I've spoken on a few other podcasts about this, and so I've just recently started speaking on it.
What shocked me about you, Vernon, we talked, and you said you dated a girl, or the girls you dated, you kind of told them like in day one. And I was like, man, that's like brave. I don't know.
Really?
No. I told the last girl I was dating, I told her on the way to me doing an interview that particular day. That's the only one I had told. Now I went back now and started telling girls because they started seeing the interview that I did for the other place, the other one. So now everybody's starting to know about it. But at first, I didn't tell. I'd only told one other girl.
Did what happened to you? Did you ever question your sexuality after that happened?
No. No.
When you go ahead.
No.
There seemed to be more thought behind that no.
No. I never questioned it.
Okay. How did you come to the decision that you would tell this story?
The guy that I caught my case with, he approached me a couple months ago, and in hindsight, everyone says he was using me to start his story. So that's kind of how it came to me. He started telling me that some guys wanted to interview him about his story, and so part of his story intersects with me.
Okay.
And so in part of me trying to help him tell his story, all of my other stuff started coming out.
So hold on. I need you to clarify.
Yeah.
Did you have a conversation with him about this?
The guy that caught my case with, yes.
Okay.
But I want you to.
Okay, hold on. Because although he caught the case with me, the jury found him not guilty. So therefore, he never went to prison.
Stop it, Vernon. Stop it.
So let me. I hate to do this to you, Vernon. This is where we go in. The reason they found him not guilty is because Vernon testified that the guy was not involved. The guy said, "Hey, can you tell everybody I wasn't there?" And this is what we talk about when Vernon is protecting somebody, because he told the jury, "Nah, this dude wasn't even involved," even though he was involved from the beginning. He tells the jury he's not involved. This guy, instead of helping Vernon out, says, "Oh, I'm gonna visit you. I'm gonna put money on your books." 3 days later, after the trial, dude disconnects his phone. So he used him to get the bank robberies then, and I still think he's using him now to get fame and fortune.
Right.
And I'm sorry to say that, Vernon, but that's my observation, because we friends, so I got to be upfront with you.
We're gonna hold you accountable. But here's the thing, ladies. If you guys pay attention, look at Vernon's face. A lot of guys would be angry. Deep down inside they would turn into beast.
Yeah.
He did not let this change his personality whatsoever.
What do you attribute that to, Vernon?
God. The peace I have ultimately is the peace that I have within myself with God, and just the fact that I have a very good mom that has been with me from through it all. She in 97, 98, she literally moved from Louisiana to go to Virginia to live up there just so she could be near me while I was in prison. So she constantly visited me like once a month, twice a month, and then even once I left the East Coast and came back down south to come home to do time, be in prison, she left her husband up there and came back home just so she could still be near me. So you can really say my mom moved all around the country to be near me while I was in prison. So it's a combination of the peace with God and my mom.
Wow.
And I want to say this. Stephanie, I know you have to go.
I have to duck out. I'm so sorry, y'all, but it was great. Thank you for sharing and having me on, and you guys have a wonderful night. Okay.
Well, you're definitely welcome to come back anytime, Stephanie.
Well,
I'm sure Georgia will keep you abreast of the conversations we'll have in the future. And if you want to join in, you're more than welcome to.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you all.
All right. Bye.
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 And one observation too is when we talk to Vernon, Vernon's troubles and things never was, it was always with women. He was the ladies' man. He was, getting all the women. He got women over in Germany when he was there. So when you hear about something that happened to him in prison, it's a complete turnaround and opposite of how his life was. Because his life was more evolved around, I met this chick, when I robbed the bank, I gave him a little girl a little something, and we doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was always around women. So my question to you is, how did that change, Vernon? Because you were the ladies' man, and all of a sudden now somebody's viewing you not the ladies' man, but someone who was taken advantage of.
Well, like I said, my problem, like you said, my problem has never been with getting acceptance from women, because I've always been comfortable with them. I've never, I guess because I've never grew up around guys, and I was never in the street with guys, I never felt comfortable in that environment. So I always felt like I had to be something other than just to try to fit into that environment.
Yes. Now, HB, we know that you are a global traveler. You've been all over.
Yes.
Do you contribute some of your escapades, I'll call them, to how you were raised? Let me take that back, to some of the things that happened to you when you were younger.
That's a hard question to ask, because I never really gave it a thought. I gave it any thought. What I'm saying? I never looked back into even talk to somebody about it. What I'm saying? To contribute. What I'm saying? The way I am today, from those acts earlier. So I mean, I guess you could say yes. Growing up in that type of environment, it seemed like it just continued over into my adulthood.
I'm going to play something that I played in the beginning, and this is basically for you, HB, and whoever didn't join, but I think it's important. Just watch this and read. Why am I as I am? To understand that of any person, his whole life from birth must be reviewed. All of our experiences fuse into our personality. Everything that ever happened to us is an ingredient. And I say that to say this. What Malcolm X was saying was, you can't make a cake with just flour. It's the flour, it's the egg, the vanilla. All of those things are combined together to make that cake. And so to make you, all of the things that happened to you in your past shaped you, made you who you are. And the sad thing to hear is we never confronted what happened to us. So we may not know why we behave how we behave, because we just accept it as that's a part of life. And that's how things are. And I think that's a contribution to most men, that we never understand why our behavior is that and what ingredients were put into that. Just think about what you said. Everybody in my neighborhood was doing it. It's just the environment I was in. We don't understand how that environment affected us, how somebody touching us affected us, how, me getting sex at an early age affected us. Vernon, with you, how, you growing up with with the women in your family and having women there, how that affected your life down the line. We never deal with those subjects as men. Georgia,
but I got to push back just a little bit on that comment. And in Vernon's case specifically, Vernon came from a military family. He came from a two-parent household, even, where they were definitely middle class, maybe even considered upper to middle class back then. Vernon's main desire was brotherhood. He found that in the military. Unfortunately, because of the women, it pulled him out. But even when he got discharged, it was other than honorable, but it was an honorable discharge to where all he had to do was wait 2 years. How many people do you know? And even HB will look at me crazy when I say this. He got out on that type of discharge and was looking forward to doing his 2 years out of the military, only to turn around and go right back. in the military. And this is during the Gulf War, during Somalia. And we already know through history, Afghanistan and so many other things came after those. Even going back into the Gulf again to get Osama bin Laden again. Not Osama bin Laden, but Saddam Hussein finally to go and get him again. So in that respect, I would say it wasn't about the women. It was about the lack of brotherhood and masculinity that he desired more so was his draw. And then once he found it, it was loyalty. And once he found it, it was all about the loyalty and the commitment to the brotherhood, which he learned while he was in the military. Because that's all we teach is loyalty and brotherhood and having each other's back. You know, because we had out in the field. If you couldn't trust your brother behind you to watch your back, it was over. So that was his mentality, and that's what he always sought. So even after he got discharged, the main thing in his life was, I need to get back to where I was my best. His best was while he was serving around his brothers, around his father figures, around his uncles. Those expectations was what he was groomed for. If you know his life story, his family groomed him to be in the military. He knew how to do square corners when he was a kid.
ROTC in high school.
ROTC, Officer Candidate School.
And I've always felt comfortable around women because that's what I was raised around. But I've never felt comfortable around guys. So when I was around the military, that's why I started to try to gain my being comfortable. And then when I came home and went to the streets, that's the same thing I tried to do then. I tried to gain some sense of being comfortable with around guys because I know, I guess I felt like a fish out of water being around a group of guys, but I've always felt comfortable around women. And I guess when I was in prison and started going to therapy, and that's when I started to work and started to realize it doesn't matter what people think of me. And in this case, when I say people, I mean guys. It doesn't matter what guys think of me because I'm gonna still be me anyway. So once I started to get comfortable with who I was and started to and love myself, then that's when I started to be comfortable around guys just being me and not having to pretend to be something that I wasn't.
Yeah.
So what you have to understand with Vernon is two things. He was out for a year and did good. His whole crime spree, he was not a career criminal. His crime spree was 9 months. That's it. He got out, he did good for a year, and then he fell into a crew of 9 months. And all he had to do was just do one more year to go back. Also, remember, he spent more time in prison than he spent outside of prison. So even at this time, his life is still conditioned with prison. So when we talked, and I said, well, how old are you? He said, well, I'm 50 in age, but in life experience, I'm still like
25, 26.
Yeah, 25. Wow. And so I want y'all to understand that.
Go ahead, HB. You were about to say something. Didn't mean to interrupt, but go ahead.
No, it wasn't too much important. I was just going to say how I grew up. I didn't grow up like in the middle class, but like the side of town that I lived at, I mean, I guess you kind of say it wasn't a bad side of town because like, even though my sister, she lived in the projects, that's where I spent most of my time at just because my mom, was working at night and she didn't want me to be at home by myself at night.
Okay.
So
HB, did you grow up with your father?
Nah, my father was elsewhere and stuff, but I think he came back around because he didn't have nowhere to go. I think maybe when I was a teenager, maybe when I was probably like about 14, that's when he came back around. That's because my mom felt guilty. He had nowhere else to go because he used to run the streets because he did time for murder because he used to be like a drug kingpin in New Jersey back in the day. And my oldest brother, he did time, spent most of his time in and out prison. He did time, I think he did 6 years for armed robbery and kidnapping. So, but I wasn't really, or my brother did that when he came to Georgia. but he lived in New Jersey because he way older. But I mean, I was never around that type of crime. Like, I didn't even know about that stuff about my father until later on. But I know he was in prison because one time my mama took me to Alabama to visit him in prison. But I didn't know what it was. So, but I think I never asked him. We never had these conversations when he came home because we didn't even really talk most of the time. He didn't drop any type of gems or anything. It was all about, you know what I'm saying, him coming home, and we watched wrestling together. We never talked. It's about wrestling, country, wrestling. We watched wrestling together, but you know what I'm saying, that was it. You know, we didn't really have no conversation. I think sometimes he tried to reprimand me about something like that. I wasn't trying to hear it because I'm like, you know, you ain't been here the whole time. So I'm like, why I'm listening to you for? Because you know what I'm saying, the streets raised me, you know what I'm saying, me hanging out. Because my brother and sister, they were older, they way older than me. My sister's like 10, 11 years older than me. My brother's like 13. So a lot of times, you know, I used to be around my sister and her friends and my sister's male friends because she had a lot of male friends, and all these guys was running the streets, you know, dope dealing, whatever, you know what I'm saying. So I was around these cats. So on top of having a mix of, you know, hanging around with the kids in the projects, and, you know, they don't have any structure. So, you know, we hanging out, playing all times of the night, you know. So I remember in high school, shoot, I used to be late. I got left back one year, but I had to go to summer school. But I was out partying all the time, like not going to school, tardy all the time. So
maybe I can ask a question in Georgia, maybe because you're the professional here, and maybe you've addressed it even in your own research and becoming who you are. Why is it in our community specifically we shun any type of mental health and assistance? What is the phobia that Black people have that causes us to say, no, we don't want to tell nobody anything?
Well,
we always had that aunt or that uncle that had some kind of issue that was supposed to be not talked about
yes,
in the family.
yes.
You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be because they were part of the LGBT community or whatever, it was just that funny aunt or that funny uncle, but it wasn't supposed to be talked about.
Well, you know, I think this goes back, and people might get on me about this, but you know, this goes back to, you know, many of the families growing up being rooted in church, and you know, you don't talk about it. You know, God can help you fix it, and you're not going to take your business. Church folks have this mindset of, you know, on the outside everything looks pretty and perfect, and so you don't talk about our business outside of these four walls.
Why did that start?
I don't know. I don't know why it started. I don't know why it continues now.
Do you think it's the trauma from our slavery that caused it?
Absolutely. And this this not only
let's
goes
unpack
back,
it. Come on now.
I mean,
let's unpack it.
It's not only the trauma of slavery, but it's the things that happened within our community that continue to it is not a secret that in many Black families years ago, you know, sexual abuse started at home. You know, there are many stories of fathers, you know, having children with their daughters. You know, there wasn't a lot to choose from, and so you know, unfortunately, men started to stray within their own families, within their own children, within their own siblings, and it was not talked about. It continued to go throughout today. You know, there's a lot of pedophilia going on with incest going on in families. It's still not talked about. And that started back then, you know, and it was this thing where you don't talk about it. We're not Color Purple is an example of what happened. That wasn't all fiction, you know, these are things that truly happened in our families, and it has continued. There's so much that we don't talk about when it comes to sex, when it comes to generational curses, and I don't know why it has gotten that way, but I do know that it is changing because there has been a huge influx of Black men and women coming into therapy. And I think it's important that we stop encouraging people to figure it out or go talk to God. We've got to stop doing that. I understand it is important to have a foundation in something. If you choose the church and the Lord to be your foundation, so be it. But recognize that is not your only resource. That is not your only tool. We cannot continue to say, let's pray about it. No, you have to do something about it. You have to reach out to people who have the skills to help you. So it is changing because I do have a lot of African Americans coming into therapy, which is amazing.
Right.
But we got to stop. We got to stop leaning on the Lord to fix everything.
Right. And that's like I said, and I believe that it stems from slavery, because back then you had the sexual trauma of the buck breaking, the inbreeding, because the master was trying to grow a bigger, stronger African American that can actually work in the fields and do a lot of strong stuff. So they were always grooming within grooming, trying to find that larger, bigger buck in order to produce more children to grow and to sell. You know, it became like that. So yeah, if it meant inbreeding between a brother and a sister to grow another child, that's what they did.
Absolutely.
So I understand that, and that's some of the things that a lot of people don't want to touch, and that's, I think, where the church comes in, like, oh, we need to put it in God's hands. That ain't that kind of God.
Woo.
Okay, churches have messed up more families than helped them.
Yes. And so there has been this secrecy, keep the stuff in the family. That has got to stop. We have got to start again, reaching out to the resources we have, talking to people, opening up about what's going on, so we can stop passing this on to the next generation. The only way this is going to stop is if we start talking about it and fix it instead of sweeping it under the rug, and then it just keeps being passed on.
So real quick, we got our first question in by Darnell Elliott. Thank you, Darnell Elliott, for the $5 super chat and the several other super chats throughout the discussion that we've had today. But his question is, when and how do you discuss sex and drugs and avoid peer pressure with your children in today's world of the internet?
So, Stephanie hit on it. These conversations have to start early. Now, they have to be age appropriate, but they have to start early. And I'm talking about the minute your child starts going to school and can talk, we need to start having age appropriate conversations about sex, drugs, alcohol, whatever. We have to start having them, but it has to be age appropriate. And Stephanie said it, you can't just dump a 20-year-old conversation on a 5-year-old. But the conversations have to happen because these kids have access to everything on this planet on the internet. The minute your child has a cell phone, you have to start talking to them about, okay, what does grooming look like? What does it look like to be on a video game and you've got somebody who continues to reach out to you and you're entertaining these conversations?
I have a question.
People need to start checking their children. I'm sorry, Vernon.
No, I was going to wait. When you finish, I just want to say I have some.
When it comes to children having cell phones, it is mind-blowing to me that parents who are paying for their children's cell phone don't check their children's cell phone. As long as that child is living in your home, and I'll say maybe 16 is enough, is an age where you can start easing up a bit, but up until that age, you need to be checking your children's cell phone. You need to be checking what their history is on their laptops and their computers. You need to have them in a centralized location at a certain age when they're doing their homework to see what they're doing on the internet. I've had young girls coming into counseling who opened up about that they've got these OnlyFans and they were dancing on
What?
for men in other countries, and some of them as young as 9 years old were
What?
doing it in their bedrooms, and their parents were downstairs. And these people, these kids had bank accounts, and these men were cash apping their accounts.
Oh my God.
Their parents were not checking their account. So these kids have money, and they are literally living this life, and their parents are not asking one question: why do you have an iPhone? I didn't buy it. Why are you walking around with these shoes on? I didn't get it. So these kids have access to everything. So the minute your child has access to a cell phone, you need to start having conversations about grooming. You need to start having conversations about sex. The minute you allow your child to get on the internet, do you have the appropriate parental controls to make sure your kid isn't accessing everything in the world when you're asleep or when you're downstairs making dinner?
Wow.
Because I know I was definitely in them Yahoo chat rooms back in the day.
Right. So it just, to put this level of responsibility on these kids it's irresponsible as parents. And it's irresponsible as parents to allow children to have access and take in their cell phones to bed. We didn't have internet back in the day, but I was falling asleep back in 1992 with my boyfriend on the phone. So Lord knows what these kids are doing, now. They have access to everything.
Mm-hmm.
So take their phones at night.
Go ahead, Vernon. You were about to say or ask a question.
One second. Before you go, Vernon, I just want to make sure we do this plug, brother, because it is why you're here. We got the book by Vernon Miller, Money, 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 The Root of All Evil. You can get it. I put the link inside of the chat. He has.
I also have mine pinned to the top of my chat as well. So go to the top of the chat and hit the link.
Yep. So make sure that you go support this young man. He could be out robbing a bank, taking your money, but he decided to write a book. So let's support a dude writing a book. That's what we're talking about. Go ahead, Vernon. I'm sorry, brother.
Yeah, I just gonna say I grew up in a house with my mom. She was more of that do as I say, not as I do type parent. And I just, over the years of maturing and growing, I just came to realize it's better sometimes to teach children more both sides of the situation, sex and drugs, rather than always just trying to give that don't do this type of mentality. Like I heard HB saying earlier, or somebody saying earlier about the parent, giving them the condom or teaching them about the condom, rather than just saying don't do it. Just try to give both sides.
Yeah.
And then I've seen this as like for young girls. I know a girl who had a little boy, and she made like fun of him. He was like 6 years old, and he was, he's a little kid. He had an erection, but she making like fun, like what? Put that away. And I'm like, put it. And it's hard to conceptualize and say to him, he can't put that away. He really doesn't even know why he has an erection. It's not sexual. It's just that's what happens to boys when they little.
Right.
And I think it was trying to almost embarrass him. So just imagine when he's young to say what you're doing is wrong, that's just not natural. And it was nothing he could do. So I think sometimes if you are a single mother and you're raising a boy, maybe you have to get a guy around to let him know, some things that men go through to get there. And
my mama tried. My mama tried to raise me, but she couldn't give me the male side.
Or we shame people, man. I know, I won't say their name because she's close to me. She don't want me to say. Maybe my wife. I won't say. But I think she was on something. You know how if you go on a roller coaster or something that gravitates you, and inside as a woman you feel like that, woo, like that feeling,
right?
And I know, like if a guy, we used to slide down a pole and be like, whoa, man,
pause.
Yeah, you slide down on the rec yard. But it gives you like this euphoria feeling.
I don't know about
all that.
I never had that before.
Yeah.
Then y'all didn't have
I worried about hitting my nutsack, bro. I ain't sliding down no pole having no euphoria feeling.
Yeah,
I'm
maybe you're not
about cracking my nuts. But HB, you were about to say something, but right before you say it, I just want to read the $10 super chat from Darnell Elliott. who is basically the sponsor for today's show, for all the contributions. I appreciate your interaction with the panel in the live. He says at Ronan, but I think this is also something you can address too, Georgia. There's racism in the medical field. Remember in the 80s and the early 90s, we damn near every Black child was diagnosed with ADD, which is true. There was a lot of medicated ADD Black children in the educational field. And Blacks are tested on, and it leads to distrust in the medical field, just like back in the day with the Tuskegee experiments and everything else. Do you think that might also have something to do with why we didn't trust the medical field?
Well, I mean, even now, there is distrust. I mean, we are underserved when it comes to healthcare, and we are often dismissed when it comes to symptoms and things that we complain of. If our white counterparts complain of the same thing, they get tested and all sorts of things, but Blacks are often dismissed. So unfortunately, that still continues. Now, when it comes to diagnosing ADD, well, that wasn't just Black kids, because there were a lot of white kids walking around doped up on Ritalin and everything else. So unfortunately, it seemed to have been, I don't know if it was, parents did not know how to deal with their kids. And so when we say diagnose, we got to use that term was used very loosely back then, because these kids were not necessarily being tested. They were being medicated. There's a difference.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say something to y'all, because what y'all did, and I'm gonna bring it out. Y'all tried to shame me. When I said an experience about sexual when little, y'all tried to shame me. Y'all laughed at it. And I just looked this up to let y'all know it does happen, because somebody on
say that again. I don't.
When I said, oh man, I know that because I've seen it on a playground where like kids will climb up a rope and they'll do something like that and they'll get aroused. And you're like, I don't know nothing about that. And I'm looking on here when
I'm talking about sensitivity.
We were giving you a hard time.
I know but I'm saying that I want y'all to know that it does happen, because here it says,
I got sensitivity.
What to do about my 4-year-old daughter climbing up a rope? And he says, today she said to her mother, my PP wants to climb the rope, and she's getting sexually aroused by doing it. So I'm saying, even, and this girl is 4 years old.
Okay, we can.
And I'm just letting you know that those things happen, and it's not something to be shameful for.
Correct.
I know y'all joking with me.
I don't. I knew exactly what you were referring to, and I think that's a great point that you're making, Fearless, because that's another thing that I know happens a lot in Black families. It is normal for your child to masturbate at 4 years old. It's normal. Man, it's there.
I wasn't even thinking about no sex at no 4 years old. Stop it.
It's not about sex. That's what you guys got to get it out your head. It's not about sex.
Experimentation, whatever you want to think of.
You're touching your body. You're realizing, oh, this feels good. This kid has no idea what sex is at 4 years old unless they've been exposed to it. Mm-hmm. It is normal. And parents have got to stop going, oh my gosh, why are you doing? Stop shaming your kid and say, you know what? If you're going to do that, go in your bedroom. Stop shaming your children, because what happens is they have a very distorted view and idea of sex in their bodies at that age when you shame them about something that is normal. That is normal.
Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second.
Hold on. HB's been waiting. HB been waiting to say something now.
I'm sorry.
I know, but it's on the same spell, so I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave the subject without playing. So just give me a second, brother. But I say that to say, see how we shame it. I mean, even as this mother, and this is just a TV show, but you were right, Georgia. Kids do that because they're just exploring their body.
Yes,
but we shame them. Yes.
It's very normal. We got to stop saying, oh my God.
Y'all making me real uncomfortable.
Stop embarrassing your boys. Stop embarrassing your girls. Simply say, if you're going to do that, you need to go to your room or you need to go to the bathroom and then have a conversation about it. But you cannot tell your child not to touch their own bodies.
Okay.
We shame and insult and then wonder why we have sexual dysfunction at older ages.
Yes.
You said you guys wanted therapy, so this is therapy.
Yeah.
You gotta open up
I'd rather keep it to men, though, not women.
Well,
Let's stay
Men
off
do
the
the
girls.
same
Listen,
thing.
do the same
let's stay off
thing.
the girls and let's stay with the boys.
No, we need to talk about it across the board, even though.
But there's no
about
girls
men.
in here. We're
Okay.
talking about men's issues.
But am I a boy? I'm a boy.
No, you're the therapist. You should be able to talk to our issues, not we talking
but
about
I'm
the female
simply
issues.
because this sounds like it's hitting home, Ronan. So
It's not hitting home for me. It's hitting home for the fact that I got a YouTube algorithm I'm trying to stay out of. And when we're all men in context talking about an issue with a girl,
we're not talking about an issue with the girl. I was simply stating that we've got to stop shaming children.
oh, absolutely. I agree with that. But let's just stay with the boy side of it. So we don't have to be talking about and getting Me Too the hell up out of here because
Why
somebody
would we get Me Too?
because people take things out of context all the time. All they have to do is see a man discussing. Listen, you know how you got trolls. Listen, you know you got trolls that come in the room and they will tear our YouTube video up just only because we said something about a little girl in a room.
But I understand that. But the point is that a lot of the sexual dysfunction that happens in adulthood stems from the shame of exploring bodies as children, which is normal, and we've got to stop shaming it and have healthier conversations around it.
I agree with that. I mean, you need to talk to your child early in life about sex, period.
Yes.
And the comfort level of it. But HB Gone Global, please get your question out.
Yeah, I mean, it was two things I wanted to say about the poll thing. I don't know anybody or any other guys that had conversation about boys. Maybe it might be girls, but boys, because a little swipe, that shit hurts.
Thank you.
I don't know about getting around.
I don't want to have my neck next to no pole.
But yeah, I didn't start masturbating until I had sex because I didn't even know what masturbation was. I seen the act of sex on television. But I don't think I recall ever seeing masturbation. But after I had sex and I had that feeling, of having an orgasm, that's when I was like started going crazy because it wasn't the girl that I dealt with wasn't trying to have sex again with me no more, and then it was hard trying to find other girls to have sex with. So I was going crazy, like trying to get that feeling again.
Let me explain something to you, HB. Y'all had a little bit easier. At least y'all had pornos. We had to go get the Sears and Roebuck lingerie section. Okay, look at George. You already tucked your head down. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. George knows. We didn't have all these damn Playboys.
I forgot about Sears and Roebuck. Yeah. The big ass book. My mom and my sister used to stay getting
pages all ripped out of there. They were like, what's going on with the lingerie section? You know what I'm saying? That's what we had. Then it became every once in a while you had a Playboy that was ripped up underneath the bed mattress or something. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It wasn't that easy access like these kids got now on the internet. They can just type in corn and all kind of things pop up.
I still think about it. Me and my friends used to have this conversation like, who the hell put those magazines? Because there was a lot of magazines in that abandoned house. It was a pile of magazines of just like old pornographic magazines.
All the daddies in the neighborhood.
Hello, they all had the spot. You found a damn stash. I'm trying to tell you.
But I want to ask Vernon, like, with the whole essay thing, did you because you said your mom moved with you when you was in prison? Like, did you tell about that when that first happened?
I told my mom that I'd gotten stabbed when I was in North Carolina, and that was around 2000 something. So it was roughly about 6-7 years later. I don't think I told about the rape until way later after that. I had to kind of ease into different things first before I, told her everything.
Mm. Was she heartbroken or tried to blame herself because of it?
My entire prison thing, me going to prison, she kind of blamed herself for that. She kind of, and I told y'all about that the other day. How after one time I got arrested, and she came to the jail to try to talk about bunding me out, and she told me
that choice, right?
Yeah. So I think she kind of blames herself for some of it. But
Wow.
to answer HB's question, I told her about the stabbing first before I told her about the rape.
How did she respond to the rape?
She cried. She cried, like, you know, of course, like any parent would.
I'm curious with you, Vernon. We talked about HB going global and his sexual experience, and that's one of the conversations we were having, because you were bringing up a whole lot of girls when we was talking. It was like, oh, this girl in Germany, oh, this girl from California, this that. It was so many. So, how did yours start? You know, was it all about women in the beginning? You know, because you said, hey, one thing we talked about was you said I went to a Catholic school and it was the good girls in church, but those really ain't good girls. And then I got some good chicks. So tell us about your experience.
I don't know what made me or how it like really started. I just remember like early experiences of getting caught behind the bed with the babysitter's daughter. I was 4 years old. She was the same age. I mean, she was like 4 years old. And I remember that one little instance getting caught humping her. I remember playing as I got a little older, 4th, 5th grade.
That brought back a memory.
Playing you remember hide and go get it.
Yeah.
So I started early with females, and it just, it just felt right. You know, it wasn't like a question of, is this who I'm supposed to be with? You know, am I supposed to be with a little boy? Am I supposed to be, you know, it just felt like girls was the right thing to do. I mean, I don't know why. I guess just talking to my mom. I do remember having a conversation with my mom around 6th grade when I asked her, hey, what do I say to girls? You know, how do I talk to girls? And she kind of blew me off with when it's time, you'll know what to say.
Oh, damn. Yeah, I remember I don't know if you called it hide and go get it back in the day or hide and go seek, but we used to chase the girls around the damn playground at school. That memory just popped up on my head like, yo, we used to get busy in the playground chasing girls around. I'm like, dang it, I forgot.
You know what? And I can't remember where we got it from. Like, did we see it on television? Like, where did we get that from?
Yeah,
it wasn't. I didn't see that at home, but it was definitely on the playground.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like everywhere, all of us from different parts of the country. So, you know, we having the same experience. Like, where this stuff comes from?
Yeah, I was in Philly at the time, Germantown, when I started doing that in elementary.
I got a question for you, Georgia. In your practice, do you see a difference between maybe economical, race? What would be the difference that maybe someone has these experiences? Like HB was saying, oh, you know, well, when I went to my sister's, it was in the hood. That's kind of what was, I want to say expected, but that's what our environment was. You see something different when it comes from a wealthier family that they just aren't exposed to that? Or what?
Yeah, so I do see it different when it comes to economics. Well, because I work with people. I used to work with people who were on Medicaid, Medicare, all the way up to people who make a lot of money. And I will say it is different. Kids who were brought up in lower income households seem to have, from my experience, higher percentages of having some type of sexual event happen before the age of 13. And, you know, it happens across all economics, but however, I have definitely noticed an uptick with lower income families. And you have a lot of that is, you know, you've got single moms who are at work and they're unfortunately having to trust their children with babysitters or having, you know, daycare situations. And unfortunately, you have a lot of single mothers who become very trusting of men that they're dating early on. And, you know, these children are not their biological children. And so there's no emotional ties to that child. And so they, you know, they're an object. And so you see a lot of that in single parent homes where the woman is the primary caregiver and she's brought men into the home. And it's very frustrating. And I wanted Riri to come on, but I don't know if she may be in bed by now. But I wanted to talk about, you know, the instances in Latino homes. You know, there's a lot of abuse that happens, and I'm not going to say it's primarily with young girls. It happens in the Latin community, Latino community, and that was something that I worked a lot with when I first moved here and was working with individuals on Medicaid. And so it happens, and yes, I do think money, I think income has a lot to do with how frequently it happens. You just don't have a lot of people. First of all, your kids are not involved in enough activities because financially they can't afford it. So I think, once kids get into sports and things of that nature, they're busy. They're not at home. They're not with the babysitter. They're not with the mother's boyfriend. So you don't see as much of it. It still happens because then you have the other side of that where your child is in sports, and then you've got coaches and things of that nature victimizing children. So it happens no matter what. I just noticed it more in lower income families.
And just to let you know, HB just had to drop off. He said he had to go. And I know we were looking at it both other ways. I used to talk to this girl, man, it had to be like 8th and 9th grade. Excellent grades, all of that. Her mom was strict on her about guys. Like, no guys, no nothing. Later on in life, I seen her. Yeah, but later on in life, I talked to her, and I was like, yeah, man, your mom was like on it. She was like a tennis star and all of this. And she said, yeah, it wasn't the guy she had to worry about, because it was the girl that would come over that they was experimenting on each other. So her mom was so protective of guys that she didn't know that it was like the little tennis coach, the girl that was older, that they were experimenting and doing things. And I was like, wow, I think we just overlook some of those things. So that's weird.
I want to say a couple of things because I have to go shortly because I have to work early tomorrow. I typically don't work on Fridays, but tomorrow's one of those days. So I do want to say a couple of things when it comes to men in particular coming into therapy and the things that they can expect, or the things that if they're not getting what they need to move on. But one of the things that I always ask every single person who comes into therapy is about sexual abuse. And I say this because many times I work with individuals who have been in therapy previously, and they're like, well, this never came up before. Nobody's ever asked me this. Well, I think there's a way that I have learned how to ask about sexual abuse to where it isn't as confusing. So one of the things I say, well, have you ever experienced any sexual trauma? And they say no. I don't stop there, because if something becomes so normalized, it's not trauma anymore. So, has anybody ever touched you and you had not given them permission? Those are the kind of questions. We got to stop saying, has anybody ever abused you? Because if this is all you've ever known, it's not abuse. It feels good. You don't realize it's not okay. So we have to ask the questions differently as professionals. And so I have had individuals who have been in therapy, men and women, for a while. And they're like, I have never talked about this. Well, because we have to ask better questions. And in intake, you have to gather as much information as you can. So that means asking a question 5 different ways. Because most times individuals who come into therapy, I have found a high percentage of them have been sexually abused at some point of their life. So going into therapy, if you're going in and you're wanting to say, I have to talk about this, if the therapist is not asking the right questions, then go to the next person, because you have to be in a situation where you feel comfortable enough and safe enough to say, I can talk about this now.
Yep. I've had that situation where I've asked people if they had trauma. They're like, no. And you dig deeper, you're like, oh, well, I've seen people getting shot, stabbed, but they didn't even view it as trauma. It was just like, oh, that's just life. Like, that was just normal.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
And it's crazy because you never know it until you go to someone who has never, ever experienced that. And you're
they
telling
look at you with their head twisted, like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Right.
I never heard of that in my life.
Right.
Yeah. Because you're saying it like normal, and they're looking. I'll give you the same, like Stephanie. when HB was like, oh yeah, you know, sex at 10 and 13 and this, and she's like, yeah, that we
Didn't
wouldn't have
happen.
that. He's saying it like that's just like everybody was doing it. And she's like, yeah, not
normal.
everybody was doing that.
Right.
Mhm.
Not everybody was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
There
And
were
that's
kids out
sad
there
that
who
we're
were truly just playing Barbies at 10 years old and playing with G.I. Joes and not
Right.
out there trying to get panties and underwear, G.I. Joe underwear.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I think that this conversation needs to come up again at some point in this podcast. I think it's very important. I think it's very important for men to start talking about this because it affects you the rest of your life. It's not just a moment. It literally shapes how you view yourself and how you view other people. I mean, you learn not to trust people anymore.
Right.
And it unfortunately affects your relationships, how you deal with women, how you deal with your children. You have to talk about it so you can let go of the damage that it will continue to cause.
Correct. Well, I don't think we'll hold you up long. We've been going for 2 hours. You know, I hope that, you know, our objective is to always get something out of this and try to help. You know, last week we had some fun. We went back and forth, but sometimes you got to have a serious talks because there's people out there, like I told the story before, they may have affected somebody. And somebody hears this story, they hear Vernon's story, they hear HP's story. And they say, hey, you know,
I think it's your audio.
Yeah, you're like fast forwarding, slow forwarding. I don't know if it's your router or what right now.
I just thought that was me.
No,
it's him. We're all hearing the same thing, so it's not us, it's him.
Okay.
So I think I got a lot of windows open. Let me close.
Yeah, close some of them windows.
I do. Before you finish, Fearless, can I show this book again? Because this is again my Bible in therapy with men is Victims No Longer, and it's the guide to men who are recovering from sexual abuse as young boys and men. This book is so relevant to everything and more that we've talked about today. And I just think all boys who had some type of experience at a young age that they weren't ready for should read this book.
I'm going to try to hyperlink it in my description. So anybody on the playback, you should be able to see Vernon's book. It's also linked in the description. But if you're in the chat right now, you should be able to see it pinned to the top. Good. But I'm also going to pin that book, or at least get the hyperlink. If anybody's interested, look in the description later on the replay. Click on the link and go ahead and purchase the book.
Awesome. I have one more question for Vernon.
Yes, ma'am.
What would you say to young men who have experienced what you've gone through?
Good question.
Yeah, what would you say to them who've experienced similar trauma, you know, in order to either motivate them or get them to just start dealing with what happened? What would you say?
I was asked that question before. In the moment, it's kind of hard to give a general answer for everybody, because as we discussed earlier, and as we already know, just talking to mental health professionals is not really something that is talked about in the Black community or really amongst men. But that's what in order to deal with that type of trauma, I would suggest trying to find somebody professional to speak with, a therapist, and try to deal with it, try to talk about it, not deal with it, but try to talk about it. And so that way, I guess I was going to say something else, but it may not sound right, but just talk to a professional.
With you writing the book and telling your story, what have you learned about yourself?
That I don't need to be accepted by men to be liked. I have to like myself for me before I can expect anybody else to like me. or to love me, I have to learn to love myself. And that's what I had to come to grips with, that no matter what I do in this life, I was still going to be a square, or considered maybe by some to be a square or a nerd. So I just had to learn to accept that. And so now I can deal with whatever.
Good. Well, I'm going to get off here, but Vernon, I know you a grown ass man, but I'm going to tell you, I'm very proud of you, because, you're setting an example for many men who have been victimized either as children or as men, that it is okay to talk about it, and it doesn't make you weak or anything else. It was something that happened to you that was out of your control. And I think conversations like this have to continue. And so for you to come out here and put your story out there for the world, it takes a man to do that. And I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Georgia. Stay tuned, Vernon. Just give us about 5 more minutes. I want to hype your book up, brother, if that's okay.
All right. You gentlemen have a good night.
All right, Georgia, you too.
Georgia.
All right. Take care.
All right.
Don't forget, we need our therapy lessons too.
Oh, I'm coming for you both.
Wait a minute. Hold up. Okay. I don't know how that sounded. That came off kind of a little shady. You know what I'm saying? What you trying to do? Set us up?
I'm sorry. I'm looking forward to having a very productive.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's get PC about it now. Okay, I got
Have
you.
a good night, y'all.
You too.
Bye.
Hey guys, I want to give a little 2-minute little hype video for Vernon's book. This will give you an introduction to it. Then we'll spend a few minutes just talking to him about it. So plan with me just 1 second here.
And in the chat was I just dropped it in the link to buy the book Victims No Longer if you want it.
Mm-hmm.
Drop that in the.
And we had an interview with Vernon. We're just still doing some clips and sharing it, but this will give you a little in stream for it.
4 hours of clipping, bruh.
Yeah.
In this upcoming interview with Fearless Podcast, we sit down with Vernon Miller, a man whose story is as gripping as it is cautionary. Vernon takes us deep into the pages of his book, Money, 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 The Root of All Evil, which tells the tale of his life before prison, the decisions that led him into a world of crime, and the moments that ultimately landed him a 39-year sentence, of which he served 25 years. In this interview, Vernon reveals a life marked by a series of fateful choices driven by the desire for wealth, to fit in and status that took him down a dangerous path. We'll explore his early years, from the relationships he formed with figures like Larry and Eric, to the moment he was drawn into the high-stakes world of bank heists. Vernon sheds light on the personal motivations that led down the wrong path, his naivety at the time, and how he became entangled in the operations orchestrated by others. The book ends with the powerful imagery of Vernon's first day behind bars, a moment filled with uncertainty, fear, and the realization that his life had taken a drastic turn. This interview will take viewers into the heart of Vernon's journey before prison, a journey fueled by greed, but ultimately leading to reflection and change. We'll discuss not only the mechanics of the crimes he committed, but also the emotional weight of the choices he made and how they impacted his future. Viewers can expect an honest and raw conversation about the pursuit of wealth, the consequences of crime, and how quickly life can spiral out of control when caught up in the wrong influences. Vernon's story serves as a powerful reminder that chasing money, trying to fit in, and the wrong choices can lead to devastating consequences. He also dispels the myth that all criminals come from a broken home with no opportunities. Tune in as we dive into this deeply personal and transformative tale.
Well, Vernon, we that's how it is. I want to hype your book up, man, because you got sentenced to 39 years in prison. You served 25 on a compassionate release. You didn't tell on when brothers want to say, "Oh, he hard." Vernon didn't tell on nobody. He didn't snitch. He took it all in on the chin and said, "I'm doing this time." He went from a high security level up at Leavenworth to Allenwood up in Pennsylvania. So he was at the big
all
shot.
Fed time.
All
and
fed
not
time.
only did I not tell, I helped somebody get out.
Yep.
Wow.
I
Help somebody get out.
co-defendant.
So when y'all want to hear all of this, what it's like how he got there. You know, he was doing it what they say the ski mask way. You know, robbing banks, getting money, driving across state lines. You know, all the things that happen when you're doing it. The women, you know, all of that. So his book focuses on all that, and I think it's a good thing. It was a therapeutic for him, but it's an exciting book that tells you, you know, sometimes there's consequences to our actions, and it's not like a whole life of crime. All this happened in 9 months. 9 months.
That's the crazy part. It was down and dirty because he was looking forward to trying to get back in the military.
Yeah, he went into robbing banks. The first, I won't say it, but you know, hey, things break, no money, robbing banks for no money. That's sad. But he tells it. He tells what life is like, and I think you guys, you can get it on Kindle. You can get his book on Kindle, play it, you know, while you're walking and get your exercise in, because y'all know your brothers love to exercise. You know, get his book, take care of it, support the brother. And it's an exciting book. You know, some of the names are changed to protect the innocent. They none of them innocent, though. They always guilty. They always guilty, but we changed the names to help some people out. But I want you guys to get the book. And it's not expensive. It's not like you
$10 on Kindle. I brought it myself. So
$10. You get it downloaded. You can just press play and listen to it like while you get your morning walk in. Now, one thing you don't want Vernon to do is if you don't buy the book, he might go back to his old ways. He might Vernon might find you somewhere and say, look, you're going to give me
Rolando
that money.
I left the link in the description. Rolando, if you want to go ahead and click on the link, it's $10 for the Kindle version, or you can get the hardback copy of it for a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. So it tells his whole life, man. He drove from Shreveport to Dallas and back, and everything he did with the fun of it, you know.
Yeah.
He used to work at Taco Bell and said, what the hell, I'm gonna rob Taco Bell. Nothing to me. Y'all ain't making my tacos right. I told you I want a taco supreme.
Right.
Hey, it sounds funny or sounds fun looking back at it.
Right.
But honestly, in those moments, it was not fun.
Not fun.
Not fun at all. It started out fun, but it really wasn't.
Yeah. But I think you guys will get an insight. One thing you'll see is, man, sometimes loyalty doesn't pay. You know, I used to think when I used to hear what's his name, Charleston White, when he's like, I'm telling, and people like, yeah, I'm not. And then when I hear Vernon's story, man,
I'm telling.
Yeah, you do right, you do the right thing, and the people you think that was hard, that, you know, I'm a rough man, I'm going down. Nah, when the feds come knocking on your door, they look. I won't give the book away, but just imagine this. You know, like you did one thing, and the feds only know about one thing, and that's all they know. You get arrested, you tell your whole life story. When I was 5 years old, I stole something from here. And you're like, bruh, if y'all ever watch the first 48 hours, the dude who's the tough dude on the street, when they get in the room,
crying like a baby.
He's like, all right, it was him. Just don't lie, do this. Those are the people.
That goes to that story when the police come arrest you, they just arrest you, but they say, hey, you come out of that bush over there, they got us. Come on, they got us. They didn't get everybody, they just got you, but they tell, hey, come out that bush, stop hiding out, come out that closet.
Right there, they got us. They got us. What you mean? They got you. You telling on me at this point. They didn't get us, they got you.
Exactly. So that's how that goes.
And I ask you this because you know the thing. So you guys don't understand when you get sentenced like with Fed. How did they tell you, Vernon? How did they say how long your sentence was?
They gave me 468 months.
Woo! Now hold up. When you heard that, did you slump over in your seat? Did you fall out and start crying, or did you just take it on the chin?
Well, because my lawyer had told me beforehand, I was taken aback then. But standing in front of the judge, I was taking it on the chin until I heard my mom start crying, because my mom was at the court at the sentencing when she started crying, because you know I can't have my mama crying, you know, that hurts me. So of course that's when I started crying, only because she was crying.
Oh man,
she didn't know what I was.
You heard her. You cried because you heard her pain. That's all it was.
Yeah.
But you can see some of these new dudes right now, they soft as butter, bro. They get in that damn jury and they hear that case, all of a sudden they falling out, crying, screaming, just acting a straight fool.
Yep.
And here's the thing. Vernon did not plead. Vernon went to trial. He said, shoot, what's the difference between 40 and 50 years? Hey, let's go for it. So a lot of y'all, y'all hear your favorite rappers, y'all hear your favorite dudes, and they doing all of this, and they, all them dudes you think is hard, they not. And they will use you and try to make you feel less of a man for the same thing that they would do. Don't let them
or gonna do.
Yep.
They just want to be the first. They just want to be the first one to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I was taking notes, and what did I tell you, Vernon? Some of the stories that Vernon was talking about reminded me of movies. Some of the movies we're talking about was Point Break, Dead Presidents, Menace to Society, Jason's Lyrics. If y'all know those movies, bits and pieces of this man's life comes out of those movies, and these were way before he did these things, before the movies were made. Like robbing a bank with the dead presidents on your face. He did that way before Point Break.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I mean, I'm talking like he did some shit that you were like, what the? That was in a movie. So as he's sitting here telling us the story like 4 hours, I'm like, yo, that reminds me of this movie.
If a person don't believe me, I can just pull up the court transcripts and see what people actually testify to these things.
Not that. Right. You said one time you said you robbed a bank and went to your girl, and she said, I know I just seen you on the news. The bank today.
Was that you?
Was that you that was in that bank? So it's on there. It was already on the news. And
it's some unreal shit. Yeah.
So when you guys like to hear it, I know we had to do something serious today because we needed to talk about that, because there still are consequences and things that you do in that life that you may have to deal with when you go there. But we wanted to tell you, and he's experienced it all. He's had that whole experience and that whole life, from the good, the bad, and the ugly. And now it's getting good again. So I want you guys, we bring people on to support, and I want you guys to really support Vernon. You all, we have one out, but you also do a video with Street Life. What is it?
Real Life Street Stars.
Real Life Street Stars. So he was famous on Real Life Street Stars.
We not as famous. Go back and watch that interview as well. So shout out to them. And you're going to see them on Sunday too, right?
Yes, sir.
You're doing another live with them on Sunday.
Yes, sir.
So you guys, you super chat us all the time. You cash app a lot of different people. Support this guy, man. He's put in a lot of years, and the story, I'm telling you, is entertaining. And in real life, it's not a movie, even though a lot of movies have kind of sheltered or kind of mirrored some of the things he's experienced in his own life. For $10, I mean, just click on the link and go buy the book. Support the brother.
Yep.
Any
last words, Vernon? You want to say anything to the people out there? You got the last words, brother.
I mean, just thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. Find me on social media. I talk to everybody. I respond. Find me on social media. Just whatever.
All right.
I'm friendly.
Don't be too friendly. That's what got you in there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what got you in there.
But now I'm more experienced.
Okay.
Now I'm more experienced.
Vernon said he ain't going back.
Nope.
That's a good one. All right, man. We're gonna do your extra with this, and we'll get out. Let me see if I can pull it up. Outro. Select that. Select as the outro. Fantastic, Vernon, man. We appreciate it. Everybody knows. Please check the link. Please come back, comment, like, subscribe, buy the book in stores now at your favorite Kindle. As I said, where did it go? Where we at? There we go.
Where did we go?
There we go. Money, money, money. Make sure y'all get that book. Make sure y'all come to us next time so we can keep these going. And until next time, people, stay fearless and travel like Ronan. We out.
This Thursday night is time for therapy with a twist. Two unapologetically real voices, Ronan and Fearless, are here to tackle the tough, raw, and often unspoken truths. It's Thursday night therapy, where no topic is off limits and no feelings are spared. Returning to the show by popular demand is our Southern Belle from Atlanta, Georgia, your favorite therapist, the woman who cuts through the noise with compassion and grit. This time, Georgia is diving deep into one of the hardest conversations for men to have, an issue often buried beneath stigma and shame. Tonight's topic, the trauma, the silence, and the impact of sexual assault against men, a subject seldom addressed, but here in the Thursday night therapy room, nothing is out of bounds. Joining us for this critical conversation is Vernon, an author who lays his truth bare in his eye-opening book, Money, 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 the Root of All Evil. Vernon takes us back to his time behind bars and the stories that shaped him, stories about survival, resilience, and the price of silence. And that's not all. We're also joined by HB Gone Global, a Marine veteran and world traveler who's faced unimaginable challenges and seen things few can truly understand. Both men bring perspectives that are as unique as they are powerful. With Georgia guiding this session, we're opening up a safe space to dissect the pain, the shame, and the silence. It's time to shine a light on these experiences, to start breaking down the barriers for those who haven't found the courage to speak. So, are you ready to witness the most powerful Thursday night therapy yet? Sit back, buckle up, and prepare for an evening of unfiltered truths and deep healing. Fearless, Ronan, Georgia, and you, the listener. It's time to start the conversation. It's time for Thursday night therapy session.